Hello, this is Lisa with Unexplained Arkansas, the podcast. And today I have very special guest Elaine and Cody Johnston from Cryptids Across the Atlas.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. Times two. So,
Of
so yeah.
course.
So yay, thank you guys so much for being here with me today. And I'm so excited because this episode, I'm trying to think what this is going to be episode 78 for me.
Oh,
And
very nice.
it's the Gowrow, the Arkansas Cryptid episode. So I'm excited, guys. I know you
Yeah,
I'm
we
guys,
are
excited
too.
too. Yes.
yeah, you guys are the cryptids, the professional cryptids crew, and I know that all this information is going to be so, I don't know, interesting for all of the listeners. So can't wait.
Yeah, we definitely love us some spooky things that go bump in the night. So,
hmm Me too. Me too. I have coyotes out here. I don't
oh
know.
yeah,
I don't know why that popped
same.
into my head, but do you have
Yeah,
coyotes?
we get
Yeah, they're
those. Yeah.
terrifying. We'll be
Yes.
sitting.
We'll be like walking late at night and we're like, oh no, we hear coyotes or wild dogs or whatever they are. And then we'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, we should probably turn back.
Actually, fun story. Just like about two
Ooh.
weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, just about 2 weeks ago, we were out walking, and so right down the road from our house, there's like a little municipal airport. So it's kind of
Ooh.
like open field area, and we're walking around the backside of this little municipal airport. And we always hear the coyotes. They're always like way off in the distance
Mhm.
or whatever. And this night they started up their nocturnal chants, if you will. And it was ear blistering. Like I mean, it was
Oh,
Yeah,
loud.
they were like on
close.
the other side of the field
Like
and we had our dog with us. And we were like,
Ooh.
yeah, they were just a few acres away. And I looked at Elaine and I'm like, we're going to go home now
yeah.
because this is not what we need to be
And then I
doing.
like kind of picked up my pace after that.
That is
Kind of jogged
awesome.
back home.
That is scary. Like, we kind of live on the edge of like a cliff, and we're right outside city limits. I mean, we're right
Nice.
outside Searcy city limits. So you hear the screams, and I'm like, what is that? Like when
Mhm.
we first heard them, when we first moved here and heard them, but they are like very close by our house,
Hmm.
and it just sounds like children or women screaming,
Yeah.
and it's not fun.
No.
Like
It's very weird.
it's
That
very
and
weird.
between those and the owls, certain times of the year can get pretty crazy too. The whole
Yes.
witch cackle they can give
Yeah.
you. So living
Oh,
out away from the city, you hear all kind of fun stuff.
yeah. I feel like I'm very like it feels like a treehouse experience almost up here. So I'm like
I
Hmm.
gotcha.
little rural, but not. And we have neighbors and everything. And then anyway, but the other night we heard there are people that will, it was night. I mean, we're talking night, and there
Hmm.
were like gunshots
Yeah,
Hmm.
loud.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder if someone maybe was shooting a coyote. I don't know. But anyway, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to sleep. It woke me up.
Yeah.
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 It's like
We
great.
fun story. Like so, just to kind of speak to cryptids and other random things, kind of cryptid pertaining. Specifically ghost lights in Arkansas. There's not been a whole lot of cryptid activity I've seen for myself, but
Mhm.
when we first moved into our house, like I said, living out rural, like we're in a field, we're out of like it's very Courage the Cowardly Dog, like the
Yes.
lone house out in the middle of the field, and
The
things get
one
kind of
street
weird at
light.
night.
Oh
Yeah, with the
wow.
one ugly street light that blinks on and off every now and then,
Uh-huh.
and so
Creepy.
down a dirt road, yeah. I was sitting there. I hope we have time for a story. If not, I
Yeah.
will. But
Oh yeah.
so we were sitting there, and every night, so our bedroom is on the second story,
Okay.
and every night I was like sitting there reading my book. Elaine was already past plumb out, and I would notice like a light, like it looked like something shining through our window, like someone shining like a flashlight. But it was like green, like I don't know if people are going to see this video or not, but there's like a green light behind me right now. It was
Oh.
literally that color.
But kind of like a laser pointer, right?
No, it was like a beam, like something like not like a little dot, like it was
Yeah.
like a beam coming across the window. I was like, that is so weird. But
Mm.
like it wasn't like a flashlight, like a beam like passing by the way. It looked like it was coming from a circle, like an orb.
Uh-huh.
And so, I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is strange. Like I've never really seen anything like this before, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
this is weird. And so I look up and I notice like I see the flash on the wall, like because it was reflecting into the room and it's gone. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that is
Oh.
so weird. So about a week goes by. I'm sitting there reading my book at night. All the lights are off once again. And here comes, I see on the wall this reflection of this green, like I can see the slats of the blinds, the shadows with this light. And I look over, and the slats are slightly open, and I see this ball of light about the size of, like, I don't know, a softball. And it floats down by the window and shoots off. And I'm like, someone must be flying a drone around our house. That's all I can explain it.
Yeah.
It happens a third time. Elaine's actually awake this time. And I tell her, I'm like, 2 weeks in a row, I have seen this green light fly up to our window and then shoot off in the middle of the night. But it's too fast to fly away like a drone. There's no sound. Like, our walls aren't that thick. Like, I would hear it if it was like the whistling of a drone or whatever.
Yeah.
And Elaine's like, Cody, you're losing your mind. Like, she absolutely, I do not think, believes me at all. The fourth time it happens, I'm sitting there reading my book. I thought she was asleep. And here comes this green light, flies up to the window. And I look over at Elaine, and she's like, I see it. It's outside the window, and then it just flies off.
And we've never seen it again.
Never saw it again.
Yeah, this was years ago.
Oh,
So,
weird.
so wild. And I was like, I don't know what this is. There's no one around us, for like a quarter mile at the time, especially.
Yeah.
Like, we had no neighbors. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So anyway,
That is definitely unexplained. So I appreciate that. And I mean, that's creepy. That's
It's very creepy.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that. So did you,
So-
I mean, did you go outside? Did you?
No.
No, we did not go outside.
No,
I
no.
stayed in bed.
I would have been like, I'm like the kind that I would have been totally freaking out, but I would have been like creeping
Right.
Right.
like outside or yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's wild. Well,
leave it to Arkansas to have every kind of strange ghost light and them to try to come show up at our house. So.
Right.
yeah. So you guys need, and that was okay. So a couple years ago, what time of year? Like,
It was winter, wasn't it? I believe it was winter.
that's so
Um,
weird.
I don't remember exactly what month it was. It was early winter, probably
Okay.
January, like right after Christmas, sometime in there.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah. You guys need some outside cameras.
Right.
Oh, we have them now.
We have them
Oh,
now.
yeah.
We
At
just
the
did it
time, we
then.
did not, but
Yeah.
we have them now. So.
And nothing else has happened.
Nothing
No.
else has happened. Never came back. I guess once we got onto it, it was like, all right, time to get out of here.
Right.
Okay. Weird. That is awesome, but
Very
weird. Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of people message me about situations with lights around, and we won't discuss or put out there where you guys live, but around the Lone Oak area. So,
Well,
isn't that weird?
That is a little weird.
Okay. So I don't know. It's been a while since we've had people reach out. But I did send them like the website. You know how you can go on
Sure.
the website and you can post your findings or if something it was like a UFO.
forum.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Yes. There's like it's like a government website where you can post your UFO experience.
Oh,
So
joy.
anyway, yeah. But
We're gonna have to look into that.
yeah, look into that, just FYI. But because that's not very far. I mean, Lone Oak's not very far from me either, So anyway, interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, well, yay. This might be a later episode, guys.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, we've done a whole investigative series on the Dover lights, and we're still kind of doing that. So yeah,
Yes.
that's
Other Arkansas
all kind of
spooky
fun
lights.
ghost lights we can talk about in the future here. So.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. We will. I have not explored a lot of lights other than me and Amber one time we went down, we did an episode on what are those? The
Gurdon, what's in
Gurdon.
lateral?
Yes, yes. We went down there and that was pretty cool. And we had some pretty weird experiences.
Really?
Just we took a picture that was really weird and we posted it. I'll have to send it to you guys. But
Yeah,
please
please
do
do.
because we've done Gurdon
weird.
twice and we did not.
No, we
have
didn't see
anything,
anything.
So I'd love to hear your experience on it.
we also had an ordeal where we may or may have not talked to some people involved in a drug bust. Anyway, we were like, ooh, and then Amber was like, we need to get out of here. We had our kids with us too. So
Oh, yeah.
That's
Bo and
okay.
Ella
I had a
with
bunch
us.
of youth students when I was a youth
Oh.
pastor. I took them out there at like
Yeah.
1 a.m. and I was like, we don't need to be here.
Yep.
This is not a good
It was a
idea
little
at
sketchy.
all. And then we also had a drug experience where one of our kids were offered some
Oh.
illegal things, but it was at an
'cause
IHOP.
we went to
so...
IHOP after.
I was about to say, if it's gonna happen, IHOP
Yeah, it was
or
like
a
2 in the
Waffle
morning,
House.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those two. Wherever there's breakfast food and late nights, that's where
Yeah.
the weird stuff's going on. That's where the real cryptids hang out.
Yes.
That is so true. So true. And I'm just not awake during those hours anymore.
Mhm.
Not
So,
the
but
same.
yeah. But that's awesome. Oh, you were an awesome youth pastor. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
questionable youth pastor, maybe.
Question mark. It sounds fun and caring. So
Yeah, they loved me. Their parents were a little sketched
Right.
out, but you know.
they're like, taking my kids down. Because did you go on the railroad
Oh, yeah.
We
tracks?
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we
it's
went
like-
a good mile and a half down through there.
Oh
So
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah. We were totally like, is this really the best thing to do with our kids? Or like, yeah. It was
Yeah.
last summer. It was fun. It was a fun experience. So
Exactly. Yeah.
something to remember.
Exactly.
Yes.
So anyway, that was awesome. So I know we're talking about the Gowrow today, and I know we're gonna start with Elaine, and she's gonna kind of tell everybody just kind of the stuffings of the Gowrow.
Yeah, so speaking of green, according to the Daily Arkansas Gazette, written on Sunday, January 31st, 1897,
Ugh, old.
the main page says the green Gowrow killed in Searcy County. So, on the main page of this newspaper, there's this really wild looking artistic depiction of this green Gowrow. He has really large tusks. He has a long tail that kind of has like a scythe, and he has like scaly skin. I would only assume that it would be green scaly skin given the name, but this is a black and white photo. And he has like big, like razor sharp, spikes hanging going down his back, and then large claws. And the story essentially is that William Reed Miller, a Little Rock traveling businessman, was going to Searcy County for a business trip, and a couple people had heard that he was going here and warned him about the green Gowrow and kind of told him about how cattle, horses, and people's pets, and then even people, the green Gowrow had like slaughtered their livestock and had been like missing family members. And so he was like, okay, like I'm interested in this. And the reason why they called it the Gowrow is because of the devilish cry. And so like as it like says its name, I'm not even going to attempt to try to do that.
Oh
I
no, please
will.
do. Oh, good.
So the way it's kind of said is has like this Gowrow.
Oh,
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
that was
go.
awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So very, very scary sounding. And so he went to Searcy County and kind of talked to the locals and kind of heard like their stories and sharing their experiences. And while he was there, a young boy was out rabbit hunting. And as he was walking down the railroad tracks, he had noticed some indentions in the mud nearby. And so the boy realized like these were not like your average like deer tracks. And so growing up in the area, the young boy was accustomed to hearing these stories because these stories had been, you know, around for a long time. And so he went to the authorities and was like, hey, like check this out. Well, this was around the time when William Miller was there. So he went into this investigation as well because he had heard of the stories. And so they kind of followed the steps from the train tracks and followed it up to this cave in Blanco, Arkansas. And whenever they got into the cave, they had like their torches with them, and they saw like just a bunch of different piles of bones from horses and hogs and even like human bones, and realized like, okay, something is terrorizing the town. And they had like caught a glimpse of it in the corner of their eye, and they found the Gowrow like hiding in this cave. And so the farmers and the police and everybody who was in on this investigation went to go kill the Gowrow. And they didn't just like shoot it a couple of times, like they had slaughtered it way after it was dead, because they were taking, you know, revenge, you know, a vengeance on their, you know, their livestock, their pets, and, you know, some of their family members.
Yeah.
And right before all this happened, William Miller, the business owner, the businessman, had his camera and took a picture of the Gowrow, and sometime later had sent it to the Smithsonian. And from that, at some point, the Smithsonian kind of lost the photo, and so we don't actually have like legitimate evidence of this thing.
Sure.
But it is a very obscure cryptid in Arkansas that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, a lot of people, like when you mention it or post or whatever, they're like, "Oh, I've not heard of that one."
Yeah.
And then I have had some people. In fact, one of my friends from the White County Historical Society, her son has really been wanting to hear this episode,
Hmm.
so he's all about the Gowrow. But yeah,
Nice.
it's very yeah, I had not heard of it at all before I got into the Unexplained podcast
Hmm.
world. So it was not something I had heard of course, the Fouke monster, but that was
Yeah.
really it as far as cryptids. So this is fascinating.
Hmm.
So fascinating. So I know before, and of course, we kind of looked at some stuff. So like this Gowrow, I did find a little bit of information because that, this was an article in the Gazette
Hmm.
and it was like a big to do. And I can only imagine in I mean, the 1800s, they didn't have a lot going on it was
No.
the newspaper. It
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
newspaper. So that was
Yep.
like a huge thing for them. And I did find an article that came out, like, because obviously when this article came out, like a lot of people were reading it and then they were writing to the editor, like
Hmm.
all this stuff. Like they were heated a little bit. Like some people were um, upset about this story, and then some people were like collaborating this story. I did find one story where this man had written in. He didn't leave his name. He just it. Let me pull it up real fast. It was interesting. He says the Gowrow traveled from New York,
Interesting.
like
Okay.
that. Yeah, yeah, the green Gowrow that landed in Searcy
Right.
County was originally from New York City. I mean, it probably took the train down.
Of
Probably.
course. Yeah.
I have
Probably.
a funny story. I flew to New York. Long story short, we took the train back, 36 hours on a train because I
Hmm.
refused to take the plane back
Hmm.
because
Okay.
I don't like to fly.
Got it.
Um, so I bet you that Gowrow just was like, you know what? I don't like to fly either.
Right.
But no,
So,
it was interesting. So this person signs this letter. It says yours truly. It was a letter to the editor for putting, the article in, and
Hmm.
he signed it hard shell. I mean,
okay.
this is back in 1897. I really think
Yeah.
Sure.
it's hard for me to tell if he's like joking or something, but he
Hmm.
does talk about how um the Gowrow came down. He says, one of your poets makes the green Gowrow a prototype of Gould, and the Gould dynasty came out of New York, and the Gould swallowed the Erie Road without grease. I don't know what that means. And evidently this Gould, it said its name was Fisk, so it had a name, and it evidently like got shot, but it also devoured five railroad people, three steamboat lines, and two opera houses. So
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I
fun.
don't, I don't know if this was like, anywho, they published this, of course, in the daily. I guess they called it back then like the Arkansas Daily Gazette or something. Daily
Yeah, the
Arkansas
Daily
Gazette.
Arkansas Gazette. Yeah.
Yes, and this was
So
posted so February 6th of 1897. Isn't that
interesting.
interesting?
So you say gold. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, yes,
Gould. Is that what we're talking about?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so they were saying that this creature's name was that? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Okay, so it said that this Green Gowrow came from this Gould dynasty. So it was like a prototype of
Okay.
Gould, according to this
Interesting.
hard shell.
Because there
Have
is a
you?
gold Arkansas as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's
Where's
in
it? Yeah, where
it's
is
right
that?
next to Cummins State Prison.
Oh, Okay.
So
Where
it's right
is
down in like
that?
the lower Delta, lower
Okay.
Delta region,
Okay. Yeah.
or the
This.
western edge of the Arkansas Delta.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. This specifically said New York, along with this New
also,
York Gowrow. Yeah.
I also want to say that other stories of this actually said that the businessman was here
Uh-huh.
from New York, I
From New
believe,
York. Okay.
or from up in like from out of
Hmm.
state. And I want to say I read somewhere from New York, like
Okay.
traveling here for business and was
Uh-huh.
going through the area. So maybe there's some of
Well,
that.
I was gonna say a lot of these stories, especially older cryptid stories, it's
Hmm.
kind of hard to understand like the actual people involved because a lot of people use pseudonyms. A lot of people
Hmm.
didn't want like themselves to be out in the public eye.
Yes.
And a lot of people fabricated stories. But then also like over time, as we have reshared these stories, some of the facts kind of start morphing and the story starts changing. And so I
Yes.
wonder if he really is from New York or because there's also
Hmm.
another William Miller from Arkansas
Hmm.
that I believe was like Arkansas's 12th governor, I think, but I
Yes.
don't
Hmm.
know if that's the same
I
person.
think it is.
Hmm.
Maybe
When
I don't know
I
what.
originally did the Gowrow story a couple years ago,
Uh-huh.
I had led with that because I thought that's what it was. So I'm
Hmm.
not sure.
I don't know. I know that the new I did find one more article that was interesting from that same time frame, like right
Hmm.
after the original article in January. There was another article like February 2nd. So it was I don't think it's the politician. Now there was
Hmm.
another William Miller that was like a doctor, but I think they would have said if he was a doctor. But they did get a comment from the William Miller. So in this article, there was a U.S. senator. No, he was an Arkansas senator, but he
Hmm.
was from Searcy County, and his
Hmm.
last name was like, I wrote it down, or did I? Like Brannis. I think it was like
Hmm.
it was really weird. It was like U.S. Brannis, and he was a senator from Marshall. So he was upset about the article because I guess because he thought that people would be scared of Marshall. I think it was one of those things. Like he was kind of thinking that the story would put like a dark taint,
Hmm.
on Marshall. So he was like, I think this story, he was just talking about how the story was ridiculous and untrue, and that um, the good people of there are so many thousands and thousands of good people and good rich land. Like
Hmm.
he really went into the good people and the good land. So I really think
Yeah.
he was just combating maybe any negative connotation. Although in my head, I think, gosh, this story is just awesome for Searcy County.
Right.
Hmm.
But in that time frame, I'm sure it wasn't. But then they did show the article, like they showed in the article, they mentioned that they showed the senator's words to the William Miller, and that he came
Hmm.
back and he was upset because he's like, well, I'm a very sound scientific mind and blah blah. So he was
Hmm.
recanting his statements, and he said, and we will send these bones. Like he said that they were going to send the bones to the
Yeah.
Smithsonian. And of course nothing, was
Right.
ever. But he
Which
was,
that
I
is.
mean, he sounded very serious though. I mean, I don't know. I felt like a little bit like, he totally believes this. He took a picture. He wants to send them. I
Hmm.
felt like he was, I don't know. I believed him. I guess. You
Well,
know what I'm
I
saying?
know that Ulysses Simpson Bratton,
Okay.
and
Yes.
a prominent Arkansas attorney in the 20th century, advocate for African American rights, county judge for Searcy County in 1893, and
Uh-huh.
a representative of the Arkansas General Assembly, had shared his own views about this after the Gowrow story and was
Uh-huh.
talking about how, yeah, like it's unjust to the good people of Searcy County. And so he was
Mhm.
really upset and was like, there's no such thing as this thing. I'm not going to taint, like you said, the
Yeah.
good people of this area.
Hmm.
And that this is a crime to talk about this. But then
Hmm.
there's also other people after this story had surfaced. There was a Mina resident who had claimed to have captured the Gowrow,
Hmm.
and like it says have captured a Gowrow by inducing the creature to eat so many dried apples that it swelled to a size that prevented it escaping into its burrow. The Gowrow's captor was exhibiting his catch to anyone who would pay a quarter. Once he had a sufficient audience, the man would stagger from behind a curtain with his clothes and rags, announcing that the Gowrow had escaped, sending the crowd into a panic without having further evidence to prove its existence. So even with that story, there's still no physical evidence of this creature.
Yes. And I guess eventually they thought that that guy was like trying to make a buck or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
From
which
from maybe the whole situation.
yeah, this reminds me so cryptids in general, uh there's whenever we kind of talk about cryptids, we break them down at the end of our episodes into like fact, folklore, or fraud, and we kind of give them a rating. Out of 100%, where do we think each of these fall? Kind of like a pie chart, right? And there's a little bit of all of that in most cryptid stories, but a lot of times, some kind of fact takes on a whole lot of folklore and a little bit of fraud. And the Gowrow definitely kind of checks some of those boxes. So you find a lot of yellow journalism in early, or I guess, 1800s, early 1900s papers,
Yes.
because, kind of like how sensationalist magazines and clickbait news articles sell, it sold back then too.
The National Enquirer.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
we haven't changed that much in what we find interesting as humans. We've just changed the medium in which we gather the information. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't uncommon to see some pretty far out there stories. And it reminds me of another tale from Wisconsin, from a cryptid called the Hodag. And the Hodag was a green cryptid with large horns and spikes protruding down its back. It did not have a scythe for a tail. Did we mention that the Gowrow had a scythe tail?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it did not have that. It had more of like a spiked mallet. So maybe it's like a cousin, but Eugene S. Shepard was the writer who kind of propagated the Hodag tales, and it was very much inspired from like kind of what you would call like a Tales from the Lumberwood, which is like a whole series of lumberjack stories, because lumberjacks either saw some really weird stuff out in the woods and or had really vivid imaginations. So, it kind of depends on which
Or
tale
both.
you're spinning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Hodag was a very similar story of the bones, the finding it, like the whole kind of story played out, even down to the story of Eugene S. Shepard actually carved a wooden Hodag, which there's pictures of the actual carving, and put it in a tent and had his kids pull on levers and like make sounds and charge people to come in, and would show people in a dimly lit room this wooden carving with all these weird noises, and his kids would be pulling on ropes and making it look like it's moving. And then of course he would
Just
like
the whole
hurry
show.
people out because it was angry, and then he'd come out and like torn up clothes and like basically like put on a whole little performance for people. So a lot of these things almost inspire off of each other sometimes. So even with the Gowrow, there may have very well been a sighting of something, and then someone could assimilate that to this other thing, and then that kind of the story of what it actually was changes a little bit, and then someone else is like, hey, this guy did this sideshow thing and made a killing off of it. Now what if we start doing a sideshow thing? And it kind of snowballs in a
What
really
was the,
fun, interesting way.
Timing from the Hodag. Was it
They're within
before?
4 years of each other.
Okay. So,
Oh,
I don't
wow.
remember the exact timing.
Isn't that
so I was
crazy?
going to say, I
Very-
wonder
though?
which one came first. Yeah.
Yeah. And just
I
the
can
fact
look.
that in that same realm, in a totally different place, like in the country, like so far away, that's so crazy.
What's the year for the Gowrow?
The Gowrow is 1897, at
So,
least when this article came out.
The first article from Eugene Shepard was 1893
Ooh.
in
So-
Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
So that one came
Wow.
first.
Yeah.
It's so
For 4 years.
interesting. And it's so, we've done a lot of folklore, Amber especially was into the folklore. And so the Vance Randolph, of course, he wrote, about the Gowrow, and he mentioned that I guess the sightings of the Gowrow had really started in the 1880s
Mhm.
as far as what he said. And he focuses on the Ozarks, which I get the Searcy
Hmm.
County is definitely part of the Ozarks.
It is, yeah.
So I think that's interesting. I do think there's something else interesting because we have done a lot of cases, like true crime cases, more or
Mhm.
less, not necessarily like this type of case in Searcy County. And I even have an upcoming episode from Searcy County. And when I went to Marshall, and that's how I got it, they pretty much say that Searcy County's like has everything weird.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot going on, but I do think that across, Arkansas, but maybe there's something to the Ozark area as
Oh,
far
Well,
there
as
definitely is
there's a
something.
lot that goes on in
in the
in that
Ozarks.
whole area in general.
We
Uh,
could, there's a whole nother cryptid up there too that we'll need to talk
Yes.
about at another
Yes.
time, huh?
yes. I am all for talking about that
Yeah.
one. So,
That is
I mean,
awesome.
Searcy County, once again, it's not very far from Dover. Dover's
Mhm.
on the way up from kind of the 40 heading up towards Searcy County, which is where the ghost lights are.
Oh
You have
yes.
the Ozark Howler comes right out of that same
Mhm.
area. Even some, honestly, doesn't the White River flow up through there as well?
I believe so.
So I know the White River monster is a little more eastern, but I believe the White
Yes.
River or like originates out that way as well and comes through that. So there's all
Yes.
kind of fun stuff. Especially
Hmm.
the Ozarks in general are such a weird. It's funny. Mountain ranges all kind of adapt their own lore. It's very Appalachian in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but we're like a concentrated little mini version of the Appalachian range. So
Mhm.
even down to like topography and stuff, when you go and like you spent time, through Appalachia and then coming back to the Ozarks, it's very similar. We have
Similar.
similar rock formations. They're similarly aged geographic features. They're both
Mhm.
older mountain ranges, I guess. I don't know how they date mountain ranges, but apparently they're
Yeah.
older than places like the Rockies. So
Yeah.
things have settled in a little bit more. They're wooded. It's different.
Yeah.
It's a very fun place, but man, there's some weird stuff that goes on out there.
Yeah, it seems like there's just a lot of, I don't know, like maybe because it is so, I guess sometimes like foresty, hilly places are kind of creepy. And you
Hmm.
Mhm.
almost always get, I don't know if you've noticed, like you almost always get like haunted stories
Hmm.
around like bridges, and of course
Yes.
Yeah.
you've got a
Yeah.
bridge because it's mountainous or whatever. Or even around like a valley dip, like
Yes.
Mhm.
we've had a lot of those. But I did find something else I was going to ask you guys about. So, and you mentioned what was it? The lumberjack tales, which was
Yes.
interesting.
Tales from the Lumberwood. Yeah.
Yes, because I had found and I'll post all of the things, as far as references, but I'd found a little clip about the Gowrow, and they mentioned that they had all these jacktails, and in
Mhm.
that one they talked about how, and I guess Jack was like the main character, like a little boy, and that evidently in this particular jacktail he like fought the Gowrow. Like he came to this town and this townspeople told him all I think it was like the firstborn like daughter was being killed like by the
Mhm.
Gowrow. And so they promised him that if he killed the Gowrow or something that he could marry the one of this guy's other
Okay.
daughters. Like that
Got
was,
it.
that was the price. So
Sure.
Yeah.
anywho, evidently he was, because a 16-year-old girl had gotten eaten. So Jack goes out, he kills the creature, and of course he gets to marry the other daughter. And so everyone lives happily ever after. And
Got it.
this was just from another one. But there was also, we had talked about before, that I thought was interesting. So it was called the Gowrow or related to, and they basically said it was in the Ozark area and it would fly. Like it had
Mhm.
wings and it would fly. And then they related it to something called a Philly Lou and a gollygag. And
Got
have
it.
you ever heard
So,
of these?
I have
uh,
not.
I've heard of Philly Loop. I'm trying to remember what it is, so I'm actually gonna have to look it up real quick. Does
Okay.
it have a spelling of it?
Yes. So Fillyloo.
Philly Lou.
I know. Great.
So if I remember right, so a Philly Lou, also known as the Gowrow, is a 20-foot reptile with boar's tusks and spikes on its back, said to be the Ozarks Ozarks.
I
North
will
America.
say, like, in one of my findings, someone had said that the Gowrow is hatched from soft-shelled eggs as large as beer kegs, and the mother would later carry newly hatched infants in her pouch. And so, like, you said it had like had wings and was flying, and then like this is talking about it's coming from eggs. And so like it almost feels like very lizard type or like dragony even.
Yes.
But then having like carried newly hatched infants in her pouch also gives me kangaroo vibes.
Yeah.
But when like I envision, or whenever I see the photo, this depiction of the Gowrow from the newspaper, and then kind of like I can kind of see either one. Now I don't know if kangaroos have ever existed in Arkansas, much less dragons.
Yeah. Or dragon kangaroos.
Exactly. But like I can kind of see it from the depiction, either one, like with the scales, like it looks very dragony. But then also with the pouch, like I envision like a kangaroo, and like this Gowrow like sits up like super tall and like is this big like beastly type of creature. And so it just kind of makes you wonder, like, was this, an exaggerated version of like a lizard or something? Or, was it a legitimate animal that we just didn't know lived in Arkansas?
Yeah. That is a good question. And like, did it ride the train from New York?
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I will say, while it's not New York, there is what's the one from Maryland?
The Snallygaster.
Oh.
And so the Snallygaster.
That's just got a fun name.
Yeah, it really does. The Snallygaster is also a large lizard-like flying thing with a, protruding horns and a beak. The only difference with it is it has tentacles coming out of its mouth.
It's like the scariest cryptid I've ever seen.
But
tentacle mouth.
Yes, I want to say the word Philly Lou I had come across in researching the Snallygaster because they are both that, and then there's another one that kind of comes up a lot when you look up these. It's called a goofus, which is like this bird that flies backwards.
Oh wow!
I don't know. Anyway,
that sounds goofus.
So, yeah, right. So those are all kind of the lumberwoods, like the fearsome critters of the lumberwood type creatures. But the Snallygaster, I want to say that I have seen it associated with the word Philly Lou. And I'm trying to remember where that was. I'm gonna have to do some digging to see if I can kind of unearth that, if you will, because that one's been a while back. So
yeah,
but those are connected some kind of way. I'm just trying to figure out what it was.
It's just weird too, because like there's so many cryptids that connect. Like when you really start researching, like even in other parts of the world, like not just like across states, but like in other countries that have very similar cryptids, like Sasquatch, like Bigfoot. Like there's so many different versions, like the Yeti, and almost like every country, like, or continent at least, has their own version of it.
I think that's the thing, is like you start getting into all the different regions, and it's different names and slight different expressions, but you start putting it together like, oh wow, a Gowrow and the Hodag are actually really similar. Like maybe there is something to that. Yeah. And you start kind of pairing together some of these creatures and realizing that like just because we have different names for it doesn't necessarily mean it might actually be something different at all. So
yeah, maybe along the same lines or whatever.
Yeah,
so as far as you guys, because of course I'm skeptically believing all things.
Sure.
But like if I were to read that paper today, I'd be like, oh yes, this green Gowrow, now we got to go find it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that it, I mean, I feel like he saw something, I guess.
Yeah.
And obviously these people saw something and were talking about something. But what is your, you mentioned the fact fraud and I think
Folklore,
I forgot.
yeah.
Folklore, yeah. So where do you think that this lands?
I'll let you go first, Elaine.
So we actually started this like fact, folklore, or fraud a couple years after this episode had
Oh,
aired. So we
um,
didn't really have this portion. And so like I'm kind of like, oh, like what do I think
yay.
about this? I kind of lean towards the fraud
Mm,
aspect. It specifically about the story about like, paying a quarter and like it would stagger
oh yeah.
away and, disappear behind a curtain and, there's no physical evidence. And like, I think it's very sketchy that
Hmm.
he took a picture or like there were bones that were sent to the Smithsonian, but like, where are they now? And were
Hmm.
they ever delivered? Was there ever actually a photo? And there was an artist, drawing of this
Hmm.
thing. But like I feel like I kind of lean towards more of the fraud aspect. However, with the I guess the Ulysses Simpson Bratton, where he was like so hardcore against this, a
Hmm.
lot of times with like cryptid stories, uh, you know, people love these stories because it brings in like tourism and tourism dollars and people coming in, and it's a lot of like small towns and stuff. But
Yes.
then there are certain people who are like very anti, like this hurts our economy, this hurts our area and everything.
Hmm.
And so I lean towards fraud, but with having, a prominent Arkansas attorney like so hardcore like
Hmm.
against this story, I feel like there might be something to it and maybe
Gives
he
it
he was
validity.
hiding something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I really think even when we've done like the haunted tales of the Arlington, like obviously the Arlington today is proud of its
Hmm.
hauntedness, its haunted stories. But even as back as like even in the 80s, they didn't want people
Hmm.
talking about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like he definitely kind of is like, him being against it makes me believe it more. And
Right.
Yeah.
What was
especially
yours?
when, yeah, tell me yours.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna go. Hmm. I'm gonna say 10% fact.
Hmm.
Okay. 70, no, 60% folklore,
Okay.
and then 30% fraud.
Yeah.
So I think initially, somewhere, there was an encounter with something
Mhm.
that someone couldn't quite explain in the moment. I don't know what that was. Oh no, my camera went
Oh,
away. Oh well.
uh-oh.
I don't know what that was, but I feel like there was something to that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
I think then the next piece is there was a lot of people that kind of hopped on the bandwagon and started kind of milking it and letting kind of, you know, manipulating the story a bit to kind of
Mm.
get something out of it, whether that be, maybe it's to sell more papers,
Yeah.
maybe it was to make a quick buck, whatever it was. But then the mix of those things, along with, other similar sightings and stuff, kind of adapted more the majority of the folklore behind it,
Yeah.
which I think that's kind of where the story kind of came to be where it is now. So I
And the
think the size of the
folklore.
creature, yeah, I think the size of the
Hmm.
creature kind of maybe got a little bigger.
Bigger.
Maybe the human bones weren't so human after all. Maybe there was something eating some farm animals, but maybe it wasn't quite as dramatic as they claimed. Go ahead, Elaine.
No, I
Yeah.
was gonna say there if there were, legitimate bones in the cave and these livestock really were being, mutilated and there were people going missing, obviously something was going on. Whether
Yeah.
it was, the Gowrow or a person, or
Hmm.
maybe it was a coyote. Like
Yeah.
maybe it was
Yeah.
just, something logical.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a
Or
really ugly mutant coyote.
Yeah.
Yes.
oh, yeah, like it could have been some type of even because I know some cryptid animals came from actual animals that we just
Yes.
Hmm.
didn't know about
Yes.
at that time. But yeah, and it seems like whenever I covered the White River Monster, like there were so many stories and and it was like this, like a lot of people saw the same thing, but different, a little bit
Hmm.
different twist and this and that. Like, one was like as big as a car, but then all of a sudden it's as big as a boat,
Yep.
Hmm. Yeah.
like a whole steamboat. So so it's just very interesting how, but I guess that's like life and just and I talk about like kind of the telephone game, like you kind of tell someone
Yeah.
something and
Yeah.
then you kind of tell a few more people and you see how it comes back around to you. It's very
Hmm.
different.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting though.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been to Searcy County a lot. I've hung out in Marshall and I've never seen the Gowrow.
Yeah.
But, I've never hung out in caves there. So
Yeah.
that's
I haven't
something.
either, really.
Well, I will say, isn't that where Blanchard Springs is? Isn't Blanchard Springs in
Is
Searcy
it,
County?
oh, I don't know. Because I
I
know,
can look.
yeah, I don't, uh, yeah, I don't know where that is.
I think it
Is it
is,
Mountain
but let
View?
me. So Blanchard Springs Caverns are in 56, Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
Which, okay. Um, great. Let me look up Searcy County real quick.
I think Stone County.
Stone County? Okay.
Mhm.
But
So I
it
think
does
it's
say
close.
it's
yeah, it's right
located
next to
in
it.
the Ozark St. Francis National Forest.
Gotcha.
So they are
So a short distance north of Mountain View.
like kind of sister counties there.
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes. Well, by Arkansas measuring, it's 15 minutes away, but by everyone else's measuring, I'm gonna say it's about 10 miles. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That sounds
So
right.
yeah.
So
But yeah,
close.
I mean that's kind of cool too, though, because that just shows you a lot of people don't realize. Like I also did not realize until relatively recently, because let me just tell you, caving is just or spelunking has got to be. That's for people who just don't love themselves enough. Let me tell you, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing about crawling into a small enclosed hole that
No.
just says, "Oh yeah, that's what I want to do on a weekend." But
Oh.
like, no thanks. But there's a
I-
lot of caves in Arkansas. We have a very, very large cave system here, and a lot of people come
Yes.
here just to explore our weird, intricate caves. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of unexplored caves in Arkansas. Tons that are known about that are just not yet documented. And there's a big group on Facebook where you can actually join up that are like people that are going out trying to document all these unknown caves and keeping maps and reports of all of them and everything. So hey, who knows what lives in those caves, which is all the more reason why I am not going
not-
to go in there.
I was gonna say we have been to Blanchard Springs,
Okay,
but
Blanchard Springs is different. It's a
Yes.
football field underground. Like that's
Yes.
fine.
We
Me
we
and I
didn't
can get
have
along
to
with
like
that.
crawl on our hands and knees to get there.
Yeah, you take an
Ooh.
elevator down,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I am in this giant room,
Yeah.
that's like, 20 acres big or whatever, and it's great.
Yeah.
But there's nothing about like, oh yeah, let me go crawl on my hands and knees and like,
No.
let out a deep exhale so I can fit through this hole. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm
No,
good,
no.
thanks.
I will say in my younger years, me and Daryl and some friends, this has been, oh gosh, I don't even want to tell this. I mean, early 2000s. I'm going to say like '06. It may have been before. I think it was before I had Elle. So she was born in '08. So we went and did the wild cave tour at
Nice.
like the Blanchard Springs
Yeah.
caverns. And
That's like the 6 hour one, right?
yes, and you take food and you get the knee pads and like the light. I mean, you were in there. And I can honestly say I did enjoy it. I mean, there were some moments where we were squeezing through like these things, and I'm like, oh, I would never do it again. Like I haven't done it
Sure.
again, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to. But
Yeah.
we did an episode on the blowing cave, which
Yeah.
I did not do that research, so I don't know. I don't even remember. We just made a lot of jokes about the blue people, in so-called blue people, and but I did have a person comment actually on that video not too long ago, that episode, and told me all about the cave, like I don't know, a lot more research. So it was near, I want to say Cave City. Anyway, there's just a lot of cave. Like if you're not from Arkansas, you definitely need to come explore some caves. But if you're
Yeah.
like us, maybe, just big ones or something, be careful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Well, I will
yeah.
say Blowing Springs is up around Bella Vista, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, I think this one was more to the Independence County area. Like
Gotcha.
that's what I'm remembering about it.
Because there
The-
is a tour for
Okay.
Cave City, which I did not realize that Cave City which no duh, like you would think it's named Cave City.
Caves.
Of course, there's a cave, but like
Yeah.
you drive through there and like I don't see any
You don't
caves.
think, yeah.
Whatever. Like I
Yeah.
see no caves. I've drove through there quite a few times. All I think is like watermelon.
Watermelon,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But there is like a rather, I mean, it's probably not as sketchy as it looks on the outside, but there's kind of like a little sketchy tour. You can go and they'll take you down under the old house and then
Ooh.
drag you down to the caves, and there are
We
caves.
haven't done it, but we almost did it last year or the year before.
Yeah, but we had our dog with us and it was too hot to leave
Yeah.
the car that long. So,
Okay. Oh.
but yeah, I was like, oh, maybe we should go back and tour the Cave
Yeah.
City caves. Just
I
to,
am not I'm not claustrophobic. I would definitely go in a cave. I just don't know that I would want to do spelunking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Yeah. I am like in my older age, I'm just not as adventurous, you know? I mean, I rode a train for 36 hours, people, to
Sure.
There you go.
avoid a flight. Which
Right.
now with all the flight stuff coming out, I'm like,
Right.
I may
yeah,
not get
well.
on an airplane anytime soon. But anyway.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, that does sound fun. And this I can't remember who, I don't remember their name, but anyway, they commented, it was like a fictitious name, it was on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah, gotcha.
But it was so interesting and it made me want to go to the cave in Cave City. So that would be, it would be fun. It would be an adventure. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, well,
And maybe there'll be a Gowrow.
Maybe,
yeah, maybe.
yes.
If they go over that far.
I mean, if
Like,
he came from New York, like,
He gets around.
Right.
Yes, I think so. Maybe like, came from, the Broadway district and wants
There
to
you go.
see some Arkansas. Maybe
Lived a
maybe-
simple life.
Yeah, maybe he was like, should I go to Branson,
Right, yeah, there you
little
go.
Broadway, the Midwest Broadway. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Well, maybe
yeah.
it was he was going to go fulfill his dog patch dreams, but then that kind of went belly up, and so
I know Dog Patch. I have some Dog Patch dreams. I never went. I've never been to Dog Patch, so I have some Dog Patch dreams. So
well, I should say I've never been while it was open. I have explored it while it was closed
have
down.
you? You have been
Yeah.
there? Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Was it cool?
It is very decrepit.
Okay, very decrepit.
Well, okay. Fun story. Whenever I went there was a goth rave party going on in an abandoned building. So
That's
it was
hilarious.
kind of
Okay.
fun.
Well, that is
you
fun.
know,
Who
Yeah,
would have thought?
yeah, some nice. I don't know if they were local or not, but some nice screamo music. Like a decrepit building falling in on itself, and like a generator humming in the backside of it. Yeah, it was a
That
whole thing.
tracks.
So
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, that is something to explore. Well, I just love all this information about the Gowrow, and I need to maybe go spend some time in some caves in Searcy County and try
there you
to
go.
really get to know this Gowrow named.
For
well,
sure.
allegedly, its name was Fisk.
Fisk the
According-
Gowrow.
Yeah, according to Hardshell. I'm gonna post this article. It's
Yes.
fun.
Which
But
I have to say, a name like Hardshell, that gives me very much like X-Files, like
Yeah.
Deep Throat, like
Yeah.
that weird,
Like-
classified documents.
like the deep throat of the
Yes,
late 1800s.
yeah,
It was really weird. They didn't, I mean, they had a lot of time on their hands. They did have phones, but they didn't have flushable toilets. I don't know.
They didn't have Facebook.
Oh, no Facebook. Can you imagine? Their
feel like we
newspapers
can.
were like Facebook. I do.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. It's like so and so went, to visit their aunt so and so. Like that was in the newspapers of the day.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Well, and how many states reuse the articles on their own newspapers and stuff, regurgitating the exact story.
Yes, like this
sharing
one
it to your
sounds
wall.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. This was so fun, and I know we had talked last time about I really want to cover another cryptid, the water panther. So
Water Panther, yeah, Heber
yeah,
Springs.
yes, and we talked
Yeah.
about so this summer that felt like so summery. So
Yeah, for sure.
so we'll have to discuss that one. But yay, so I love it. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
being
you.
with me.
Yeah,
So,
thank you for having us.
yes, thank you. I appreciate it. And this was a lot of fun. And I have to say I believe that William a little bit, but I'm totally on board with the fraud stuff. And the folklore. It just it
Yeah.
all melts together. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm totally
You just
with it.
never know.
Mm-mm. No, and I think that's the fun part. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you guys for listening. And please check out. So, definitely go. I'm going to be sharing all of Elaine and Cody's information, all of their like stuff. So, definitely check out all of their stuff. And then definitely, purchase some merch. I've got a lot. Um, of plans coming up, a lot of fun stuff coming. So definitely check out all that. But thank you guys for listening and have a great week. Love ya.